5 words. That's all it took. 5 simple words from a contestant standing at that podium, and Steve Harvey, the man who's made millions laugh, who's stood on that stage for over a decade, who's seen every kind of answer, every kind of family, suddenly wasn't there anymore. His body was, but his mind had traveled back 30 years to a moment he thought he'd buried. The studio fell silent. The audience stopped laughing. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate, as if they knew they were witnessing something that wasn't supposed to happen on a game show. This is the story of the day Steve Harvey broke protocol, stopped the show, and reminded everyone watching that behind the suits and the jokes, there's a man who's walked through fire to get where he is. It was a Tuesday afternoon taping at the Family Feud studio in Atlanta. The energy was electric, as it always is. 2 families stood ready, the lights were blazing, and Steve Harvey walked onto that stage with his signature confidence, navy blue suit pressed to perfection, that $1 million smile lighting up the room. He'd done this thousands of times. Welcome the families, crack a few jokes, keep the energy high, make America laugh. It was supposed to be just another episode. Just another day at the office for a man who'd mastered the art of turning simple survey questions into comedy gold. The Johnson family stood on the left. Marcus Johnson, 47 years old, a construction worker from Detroit. His wife Angela, their 2 teenage kids, and Marcus's younger brother filled out the team. They were excited, nervous, doing that little shuffle people do when they're trying to contain their energy. Steve did his usual opening, getting laughs, making Marcus loosen up. Everything was going exactly as planned. Then came the question. Survey says, name something you did without when you were broke that you can't imagine living without now. It was a standard Family Feud question. The kind designed to get funny answers, maybe some humble brags, definitely some laughs. The board lit up, waiting for responses. Marcus stepped up to the podium, that buzzer in his hand, ready to play. Steve stood there with his cards, eyebrows raised in that expectant way he has, ready to react to whatever came next. But Steve Harvey wasn't prepared for what Marcus Johnson was about to say. And neither was anyone else in that studio. Marcus looked at Steve, and something shifted in his expression. This wasn't going to be a funny answer. Steve, he said, his voice steady but weighted with something deeper. I'm gonna be real with you right now. The audience quieted. Steve's smile softened, recognizing that tone. That's the tone of a man who's about to speak truth. When I was homeless, Marcus continued, and the word hung in the air like a thunderclap. Sleeping in my car with my little brother in the back seat, we went without a lot of things. But you know what I couldn't live without? He paused. The studio was dead silent. Hope. Just hope. 5 words at the end. Just hope. That's all it took. Steve Harvey's face did something it rarely does on camera. The performance dropped. The comedian stepped back. The man stepped forward. His hand, the one holding those blue cards, started to tremble slightly. His jaw clenched. His eyes, usually sparkling with mischief or humor, suddenly looked somewhere beyond the stage, beyond the lights, beyond that moment entirely. The production team in the booth noticed it first. Is Steve okay? Someone whispered. The audience noticed next. The silence that had been anticipatory became concerned. Marcus noticed too, his expression shifting from vulnerable to worried. Steve! You alright, man? But Steve Harvey was 30 years away, standing in a parking lot in Cleveland, looking at his 1976 Ford Tempo, the car that was his bedroom, his kitchen, his refuge. He was remembering what it felt like to wash in gas station bathrooms. To do comedy sets at night, and then drive to a quiet spot where the police wouldn't knock on his window. To choose between gas money and food. To call his father and hear the disappointment in his voice. To wonder if he'd made the biggest mistake of his life by choosing to chase a dream instead of keeping a steady job. And he remembered the one thing that kept him going through all of it. The exact same thing Marcus Johnson had just named. Hope. Just hope. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. The silence lasted maybe 10 seconds. In television, that's an eternity. In that studio, it felt like time had stopped. Steve's eyes had gone glassy. His mouth opened once, then closed. He looked down at his cards as if they might have an answer for what he was feeling, but they were just cards with survey results. They couldn't help him now. Then he did something unprecedented. He looked directly at the control booth, made a cutting gesture with his hand, and said just one word. Stop. The producers froze. In the history of Family Feud, in all the years Steve Harvey had hosted, he had never stopped a taping. Never. The show is filmed in front of a live audience, and the momentum is everything. You keep going. You work through technical issues, awkward answers, even occasional emotional moments. You keep the energy up. That's the job. But Steve Harvey had just thrown the rule book out. He walked away from his podium. The audience gasped softly. Marcus Johnson stood at his buzzer, unsure what was happening, his family behind him exchanging worried glances. Steve walked slowly toward Marcus, and as he did, he started unbuttoning his suit jacket. It's a gesture he makes sometimes when he's about to get serious, when he's about to step out of character and into something real. He reached Marcus and stood there for a moment, just looking at him. Then Steve Harvey did something that made the entire audience lean forward. He spoke, and his voice was different. Lower. Rougher. Real. Marcus, he said, I need you to know something. He paused, collecting himself. 1987 to 1990, I was homeless. 3 years. I lived in that car. I performed at night, slept wherever I could park, and I showered in hotel bathrooms and gas stations. I had nothing. Nothing except, his voice cracked slightly, except hope. Just hope. The audience erupted not in applause, but in a collective gasp of recognition. Angela Johnson, Marcus's wife, brought her hand to her mouth. Their teenage daughter started crying. Marcus himself stood frozen, his eyes locked on Steve, and you could see it dawn on him that he just connected with this man on a level that had nothing to do with game shows or television. Behind the scenes, producers were making frantic decisions. Do we keep rolling? Do we cut? One of them, a woman named Patricia who'd worked with Steve for 6 years, made the call. Keep every camera on them. This is real. This matters. Steve reached up and placed his hand on Marcus's shoulder. How long were you out there? He asked, his voice still thick with emotion. 2 years, Marcus said, his own voice breaking now. 2 years in that car with my brother. I was 23, Steve. I thought I was a failure. I thought I'd let everyone down. I wanted to give up every single day. But you didn't, Steve said, and it wasn't a question. It was a statement. A recognition. A validation. No, sir, I didn't. Because I kept thinking. I kept thinking that if I could just hold on to hope, if I could just believe that tomorrow might be different, then maybe. Marcus's voice gave out. He couldn't finish. Steve Harvey pulled him in. Right there on the Family Feud stage, in front of the cameras, in front of America, he embraced this man who was a stranger an hour ago, but was now a brother in a way that transcended everything else. The audience was on its feet. Not cheering. Not applauding. Just standing, witnessing something sacred happening in a space designed for entertainment. Angela Johnson was openly weeping. The Johnson kids were holding each other. Even the opposing family, the Patterson family from Miami who were supposed to be competitors, had tears streaming down their faces. Steve held Marcus for what felt like a long time. When they separated, Steve's eyes were red. He wiped at them with the back of his hand, not caring about the makeup, not caring about the cameras, not caring about anything except this moment of human connection. I need to tell you something, Steve said to Marcus, his voice steadier now but still raw. When I was in that car, you know what got me through? It wasn't talent. It wasn't luck. It was people. Random people who showed me kindness when they didn't have to. A comedy club owner who'd slip me $20 after a set. A waitress who'd give me free coffee and wouldn't tell her manager. An old couple who saw me sleeping in a parking lot and brought me breakfast without asking questions. He paused, looking not just at Marcus now but at the whole studio, at the cameras, at America. Those people saved my life. They gave me more than food or money. They gave me proof that hope wasn't stupid. That the world had good in it. That I mattered even when I felt like I didn't. Steve's voice was gaining strength now, powered by something deeper than performance. So Marcus, I need you to hear me. You standing here today, doing well enough to be on this show, providing for your family, you're not just a survivor. You're proof. You're proof that hope works. You're proof that the struggle has a purpose. You're proof that... Steve stopped. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card. Not a prop. Not something from the show. His personal card. He handed it to Marcus. You call that number, Steve said firmly. You hear me? You call it. Because I've got opportunities, I've got connections, and I've got resources that I didn't have back then. And if you're trying to build something, if you're still climbing, I want to help. Because that's what we do. That's what people did for me, and that's what I do for people who had the courage to hold on to hope when hope was all they had. Marcus took the card with shaking hands. Steve, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything, Steve replied. Just promise me something. Promise me that when you make it, not if, when, you'll do the same for somebody else. You'll be somebody's proof that hope isn't naive. That it's the strongest thing we've got. I promise, Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. I promise. Steve nodded. Then he did something else unexpected. He took off his suit jacket, that beautiful, perfectly tailored navy blue jacket, and he draped it over Marcus's shoulders. Keep this, he said. I've got plenty of suits. But you keep this one to remember that you're not alone. You were never alone. And you never will be. The audience lost it. The standing ovation was thunderous. But it wasn't for the show. It wasn't for entertainment. It was for witnessing something genuine in a world that often feels scripted. It was for seeing two men who'd walked through hell acknowledge each other's scars and call them beautiful. Patricia in the control booth made another call. We're taking a break. Give Steve however long he needs. The applause sign wasn't flashing. The audience didn't need prompting. This was organic. This was real. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. When the show resumed 20 minutes later, everything had changed. The game continued. The Johnsons actually won that round, and Marcus's answer, hope, was on the board, the number 2 answer, but the energy was different. Softer. More connected. The Patterson family, who technically lost that round, came over during the break and hugged the Johnsons. Steve's jokes came back, but they had a different quality. Gentler. More grounded. During the final segment, Steve did something else unusual. He addressed the camera directly. America, he said, I know y'all tune in to laugh. And we're gonna keep making you laugh. But I also need you to know something. Behind every person you see, behind every family standing at these podiums, there's a story. There's struggle. There's pain. And there's hope. Don't ever forget that hope is real. It's not wishful thinking. It's survival. It's strength. And it's enough to change everything. After the taping, Marcus and his family stayed for over an hour talking with Steve. They took pictures, but not the usual celebrity fan photos. These were different. These looked like family photos. Because that's what they'd become in the span of an afternoon. Family. Steve's team later confirmed that he did follow through. He connected Marcus with construction company owners in Detroit. He helped Marcus's daughter get a scholarship interview. And that navy blue jacket? Marcus still has it, hanging in his home office, a reminder that hope isn't just a word on a game show board. It's the bridge between who we were and who we're becoming. And sometimes, all it takes is 5 words from a stranger to remind us that we've never been walking alone. That jacket, that card, that moment, they became Marcus's proof. And through Marcus's story, they became ours too. Because hope isn't about forgetting where you came from. It's about remembering why you kept going. And that's a lesson that goes far beyond any game show stage.